Hey, are you a senior pastor or the leader of your organization and you just wish you could share with your team, with your staff, some of the things that are going on the inside? Or are you a staff member, a second chair leader who's trying to get more in the mind and in the brain of your senior leader? Well, I believe that this podcast is going to be a blessing. Recently, I sat down with Brandon Stewart, an amazing friend who leads an awesome organization called Leading Second. And we just had an incredible conversation together and discussion together. It was just a lot of fun to discuss a first chair leader, a senior pastor with a second chair leader, and just talking through all of those dynamics. And so today in the podcast, I'm going to let you listen in on that conversation. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. Just before we go to that convo, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure, if this is a blessing to you, that you share this episode with somebody. Throw it in your Instagram story. Do something to help us spread the word. If you're a pastor, show this maybe to your teams and have a staff meeting built around this content. I pray and really do believe that it will be helpful to you. And lastly, big shout out to our sponsor, Launch Sunday, launchsunday.com, an incredible signage printing organization company that helps us with all of our signage, all of our printing, all of our merch, everything that we do at Citylight, we do through Launch Sunday. So check them out if you need help with any of that. All right, check out this week's podcast.
Well, Jabin, welcome to the Leading Second podcast. It is an absolute honor to have you on with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Love what you're doing. Love the ministry, and honored to help anybody I can. And hopefully I'll help more than just cause trouble today. So that's the goal.
Cause some trouble. I think we need some good trouble.
Yeah. A little bit of trouble, and a lot of help. That's
First of all, y'all have an absolute miracle unfolding in Las Vegas here. I think your church is a miracle, and it's absolutely brilliant. And of course, you're in a push building season. Why don't you just share with us a bit of what God is doing at Citylight?
Yeah, we planted Citylight Church 6 years ago in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we're a portable church. We meet in a high school, set up, tear down every week. And we are building a building right now. We have steel up. We've got roofs on. And so we got walls, we got stuff like that. And as we are recording right now, we should be moving in December 2024. That's the goal. That's what we're looking at. Who knows, right? It was going to be
That's everybody's first
July
question, right?
2024,
When are you moving in?
Then it was August, then it was September, and then it was October for a really long time, and then it was December. But it has been December for the last 6 months. So we're looking at December 2024.
That's awesome.
Building that building, and just in a great season, and God's doing some awesome things in our church. A lot of growth, a lot of just God's hand. Sunday was just kind of a normal Sunday as the school year's ending, and as there was really nothing special going on. It was just church, and we had 87 people come to Christ.
Man, praise God.
And that doesn't include what happens in correctional facilities, streaming there with a group called Hope for Prisoners, as well as God Behind Bars, where we're seeing thousands of people come to Christ. Doesn't include our children's ministry or online ministry. That's just people in the room, publicly responding. So good things are happening, and I'm grateful. And
that's awesome.
So it's good. It's good.
Praise God for that. Thankful for what he's doing through your church. How old is your church, by the way? I was trying to remember.
So we planted March 2018. So we just crossed 6 years.
Okay.
And so we're 6 years and a couple of months old right now.
Awesome. Well, grace to you in a building project that brings out brings out everything crazy.
Yep.
Right.
It's why it's definitely an adventure, and I'm going to be very glad when it's over. That's what I'll say about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, for this conversation today, I don't know what to title it. I think we're going to title this conversation "Things Your Pastor Wished You Knew But Can't Say." I think we're going to use that title. That was the title I gave my very first leadership message I ever wrote when we were toying around with leading second 6 or 7 years ago. Was, I wonder if we can give voice to what a pastor is dying for their team to know. Like, if my team just knew this, we could take the city, And so I want to mine for it today a little bit with you, sir, if you're good for that. And maybe start us out today by just sharing a bit of your own story, because you've been in the second chair. First of all, you are well acquainted with serving the vision of another. So I guess we'll get to your lead pastor perspective in a second, but start us out on maybe what you learned from your own seasons of life in the second chair.
Yeah, I think that what I learned about now, now that I'm in this chair, is that as a second chair leader, I really did I loved the church. I loved the body of Christ. I loved my home church. And I just loved church. I really did. And yet there was only so much weight that I had to carry in that organization.
Right.
And so I couldn't fully grasp what my pastor was going through, what he was feeling, how he was having to navigate relationships, people, politics, on and on and on and on and on, right? You just don't know, and you can't know. And I think it's important for a second chair person to understand that you just don't know what you don't know. And that's okay. Embrace that. We'll talk more about this, but
yeah,
you have to learn how to give your leader a lot of grace, because you just don't know. And the way that I explain it is like this. Before I was a senior pastor, I loved the church. But here's how I'd explain it. I loved it like I love my nieces and nephews. I love my nieces and nephews. I'd die for my nieces and nephews. I would adopt my nieces and nephews. I'd help my nieces and nephews. I would, like, whatever they need, they can have it. Like, I love my nieces and I love my nephews, but I don't love them like I love my daughter.
Wow.
And I don't love them like I love my wife. And if you told me, do I choose my wife and daughter, or do I choose my nieces and nephews? Sorry. Choosing my wife and daughter. Here's how I would explain it. I loved the church and the body of Christ. I really did. But when I became a senior pastor, I went, oh. And it's like before you're a parent, you don't even understand. You cannot. I remember a friend telling me there's a whole part of your heart that you don't even know exists yet until you hold your baby.
That's true.
You don't even know it's there. And I can honestly say that as a senior leader, you go in at such a radically different level because of the responsibility and because of what you're navigating. It's very hard. And so I don't expect my team to totally love Citylight Church the way that I do. But I also need them to give me the grace, and they need to have the humility to go, yeah, and I don't think I feel it like he feels it.
Totally.
So there's this trust that they've got to have in me, and there's this grace that I've got to give them. And it really is a tension. It's as Kevin Gerald says, it can't be something that we just get rid of. It can't be a dumb dichotomy, right? It's like we can just get rid of it. It's like this tension that we've got to like live in. And, Andy Stanley talks about tensions to manage. It is this tension to manage. And I think, that's just, I don't know how to say that, but I need the team to trust me, and I need to give them grace. And I think it's really a tension point that you have to navigate.
Okay. Help me explore this for a minute. So I am, what is this, season 7? So I'm 7 years into having a version of this conversation with lead pastors. I get to sit with lead pastors all the time. I've done it for 12 years now. Every single last pastor, Jabin, describes it as wait. Everybody uses that word, wait. Can you take me one more layer into that? Because I feel like, well, first of all, it's accurate because everybody describes it that way. But there's a side to it the second chair doesn't see and doesn't know, and even maybe doesn't need to know, like you've just said. Well, can you describe that anymore? The word wait that you carry.
I would say that, Paul talks about his trials, right? In 2 Corinthians 11. And he goes, on top of all of the trials, on top of being shipwrecked and almost killed and almost beat to death, and the persecution and the hunger and he goes through all this stuff, right? And then he goes, and on top of that, the weight of the churches. I believe it is a supernatural burden that God puts on a senior leader. It's what Hebrews 13 calls a pastor watches over your soul. I think that is an unavoidable spiritual gift that doesn't feel like a gift that God actually places on a pastor.
Wow.
Where we feel this thing. This is why pastors, by the way, can get controlling. It's not because they're evil. It's they don't know how to handle the weight. They don't know how to handle and trust God with it. And so you can end up getting real controlling. But there's this unavoidable, you're always thinking about it, can never shut it off. I believe it is God. I believe it's God's gift and burden to the pastor. It's what, when you read, you think about some of the things Paul would write to the churches, right? I was like a mother to you. I was like a father to you, right? Like I didn't take any money from you. Like you think about the things that Paul would write. He was very emotional, and he's dealing with all of these feelings of you're talking about Apollos, and you're talking about this, and you're saying I'm not a good communicator, and you're right. And he's having to deal with this burden. I remember a story of Pastor Steve Hill. He's in heaven now, but he remembered he called his mentor Leonard Ravenhill, who wrote the famous Why Revival Tarries, and he said, Leonard, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't think. All I'm thinking about is my church. All I'm thinking about are the people. All I'm thinking about is what they're going through. And he said, please pray for me. I need peace. And Leonard said, I can't pray for God to lift that. I've been praying for God to put that on you. And he's like, you're finally carrying it.
Wow.
And again, I love being a pastor. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there is this thing that I believe comes on you. It is a supernatural love for a people, for a community. You care about their soul, and you care. And because of that, and because we're human, we process everything that God does spiritually through our soul. This is why mental health, mind, will, and emotions is so important for a pastor. Because we are fighting spiritual battles and we're caring about spiritual things, but we don't process that in the spirit. You process that through your mind, will, and emotions.
Yeah.
And so this is why You can be a pastor who loves God and loves people, but you're an alcoholic or a porn addict or controlling or angry because you haven't learned how to process the pressure of leading and loving people. And that's why that's why I love pastors and I'm gracious to pastors, but it's also why pastors have to work so hard at this. And it's why staffs in back to the context of what we're talking about, because I don't want to get too caught on talking to senior pastors, but that's why staffs have to be so gracious. That's why you have to pray for your pastor.
That's right.
And love your pastor, support your pastor, because they are carrying an unavoidable thing that they're having to emotionally, in a healthy way, process, and it's not going away.
That is maybe among the best descriptions I've ever heard of it. Thank you. And I feel like that gap of understanding, we'll probably never stop talking about it in our ministry, because that gap of understanding can leave the door open to all kind of confusion and all kind of misunderstanding. I think of Matthew chapter 25, parable of the talents. The master gave his stewards, to one he gave 5, to one he gave 2, to one he gave 1. And then he says he goes on a long journey. Yeah. I always have questions at that point, like, where did he go? How long was he gone? Did they understand why he was gone? Did they understand that he was going to come back and settle accounts? Were they offended when he came back and asked them what they had done? That there's a gap. Sometimes we don't know where pastor is, or what pastor is focused on, or what he's carrying or she's carrying, or and that gap can breed all manner of misunderstanding and frustration. So I just don't think we're ever going to stop talking about minding the gap between.
Yeah. And I've preached from Matthew 25, and I've actually said, what you just said in a different way, but I said, yeah, he gave them a responsibility, then he just bounced.
Exactly.
It's like, Master, I need discipleship. Master, I need you to teach me. Master, I need more time. I need lunch. I need breakfast. He's gone. And then he comes back. He never told him what to do with the gold, with the talents. He just expected a return. Yep. And is that our leadership framework? No, but it's in the Bible, and it's how Jesus treats us. So I do think, it's like, obviously we want to be great communicators. We want to help our teams. We want to communicate to our teams, but no, there is a gap. And again, it's something that I think you have to address, work on, and then embrace as a part of the tension.
So let's talk about a couple elements of that tension, or those gaps. Let me just fire up a couple questions at you. First of all, what are some things that your team does well that lightens your load and supports you as a pastor? Or what have you seen from second chair leaders that effectively lightens a senior leader's load and supports them well?
I'm in a unique role, and I'll just admit that because of I'm not bragging or being. Let me just start with where I'm at personally. I am gone a lot. Okay. I travel a lot. Pastor Kevin and I were just talking about this when I was in Seattle recently. You're trying to steward this weird thing that God has entrusted you with, to go travel and preach at churches while pastoring your own church. Not every pastor is going to have that. Not every pastor should want that. But for whatever reason, God allows that sometimes for people, and he's done that for me. And I've had to navigate that. I say that to say, so not every pastor is gone as much as I'm gone. I mean, I'm here right now. Tomorrow I get on a flight. I'm in Charlotte this weekend, and then I'm back for a week, and then I'm in somewhere for a couple of days. And I mean, like, I do go, And I believe it's something that I have to steward. I say no more than I say yes by probably 90%, but I still do say yes to a lot of things. So one of the things that I've had to teach my team, and I think this is very important, is number one, you cannot bother me. You can't bother me. I don't want to bother you. I know you're busy.
Very good.
I know you got a lot on your plate. We do not talk like that. We've cut it out of our vocabulary. And I think it's very important for senior pastors who are listening to communicate to your team, hey, you have access to me. Now there might be some layers, right? I get that, but I'm talking about the people who relate to me. They don't talk that way. It's never, is this a good time? Can I call? I know you're busy. Never. They can call, they can text. They know my day off and they would honor that, right? But if it's an emergency, I'm going to get a text. Hey, I know it's your day off, but I need to talk to you.
Yep.
And so we've removed that, and I'm getting somewhere, is that I need communication. And when I'm dealing with a church of thousands of people, a staff, and then, oh yeah, a travel ministry. Oh yeah. Right. And then a wife and a child and life and friends and everything else. I need my team to proactively communicate and never assume. So it's always communicate. It's always reach out. It's always make the call. It's always send the text. It's always let me know. It's never, well, I didn't want to bother you. Well, I knew you were busy. I didn't know if you would care. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, so my thing to the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people that are in direct contact with me. It's like, I want to know everything. And the line of communication is constant. That lets me feel it lets me feel communicated to. And in the same way, I don't apologize to them. Hey, I know you're busy. Hey, now I'm not calling my team at 9:00 at night. Right. I'm not dishonoring their schedule, but my point is we have a free flow of communication. I think it's very important. Send the text, send the email, make the phone call, fill me in, let me know what's going on. I just think that's a huge, important thing for second chair leaders.
Yeah.
They don't need to know. They don't care. They got a lot going on. No, we want to know. And it could be, my reply could be a thumbs up, emoji, whatever, or it could be, we need to hop on a phone call, right? But at least I'm in the know.
Yeah. To maybe make what you've just said 1 degree, you said it really well, but 1 degree more practical for some. I've met a lot of pastors. They may not travel and minister in the same capacity that you do, but I've met pastors that have community outreach they're involved in, and pastors that coach other pastors. And, I think that it's false to assume just because pastor's out of the office is on the golf course or something. Right. Not that I'd even push back on that, but the pastors can often have, in fact, maybe you could even argue it's good for a church, for your pastor to have an arm into the community in some way, influence into, another part of your city or other pastors that need the wisdom that's in your pastor. So it can happen, quite a bit out there. And I appreciate what you said. And going back to the parable of the talents, I guess that's becoming our text for this podcast without us talking about it. The stewards, I guess the servants at that moment, had something to do while the master was absent. There was a responsibility on the servants in the master's absence, not living in the question of where's pastor, but the living in the responsibility of what that moment brings. Let me ask you about kind of putting legs to the vision. What does your team do well to put legs to the vision, to bring it to life for you're a visionary leader. Many lead pastors are visionary leaders, or certainly are in a visionary box on the org chart. So what does your team do well to bring it to life and give it legs?
Again, I love the thought of, Andy Stanley obviously talks about, to the first chair, do the things only you can do. Right.
Yep.
I think we've embraced that as
Mm-hmm.
a philosophy. The other thing though, that Stephen Furtick told me when we first started, he said, you have two hands. And he said, you can put these two hands into two areas of your church. So choose wisely.
Wow.
So you can't be in kids, youth, finance, small groups, worship, production. He said, you got two hands. So for me, it's Sunday. It's the Sunday service and that feeling of just, what does that feel like on Sunday? And I've really been the architect behind our Sunday feel. And then I would say my other hand is worship, and which are really connected, but obviously I was a worship leader and, at songwriting, worship ministry, and that's really it. And then my wife is like creative and kids. And so I just say that to say, I can't be in everything. Our team knows that. And we've really worked hard at like, okay, here's what I can do. Here's what I cannot do, but here's the vision. So I can't fulfill the vision. I cannot personally fulfill the vision. I can't be, Moses, Exodus 18, what you're doing is unwise. You're trying to do everything. I can't do everything. Here's the things I can do. And it's the things only I can do. Here's everything that has to get done. And I'm going to give input. I'm going to care. I'm going to be excited about it. But no, do I care as much about a small group curriculum as my sermon on Sunday? No, I don't. Is that wrong? Maybe. Do you disagree with me? Possibly, but I don't care. Right. Cause it's my church. So I got to navigate that.
Yeah.
But like, that's what I mean. Like, no one asked me what should they do at youth ministry last night. Right. Like my hand's just not in that. Like, yeah, it's great. Cool, dude. Like, yeah, awesome. But I can't get into everything, but the team has to be mature enough to go, this is a part of our vision, but it may not fit in pastor's hands. It's a part of our vision, but he can only do a few things. And that's a huge paradigm shift for the people to go, for the team to go, this is valuable. This is needed. He knows it, but he has this, but God's anointed his hands for a certain thing.
When your hands aren't in it, when it's not one of your two hands, well said on that. What sort of visibility would you like your team to give you into that area? Because I don't think you're proposing being aloof. Yeah. So what sort of visibility, just you as a leader, what do you like to see in those moments?
Yeah, I want to see, probably for me, that's a monthly update, monthly meeting, not weekly. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm in Sunday every week.
Sure.
We're writing songs every week. I'm creating content every week, right? So and even really every day. So but the things that are not in my two hands might be monthly or quarterly. Right? And I would say that's kind of how that works. So no, do those teams get as much access to me? Not necessarily. Are they just as vital to the vision? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we've got a team night coming up in June. It's for all volunteers, legacy team, volunteers, serve teams. I'm going to show up and preach. That's all I know. Right. Like I just don't know anything else about what's going on that night as far as what we're serving and I don't need to. And yet I value the fact that we're going to feed our people and it's going to be amazing and fun. And there's going to be games and I did find out this week, there's going to be a mariachi group that's going to sing. So hopefully we're going to eat Mexican food. That's what I expect. Right. But but I also know what I need to bring to that moment, and all of it matters, but I can be briefed really quickly, where I'm giving hours to songwriting, right? And hours and hours and hours to content. And so there is a difference. And yet to me, team night matters. Team night to me is one of the most important things we do as a church.
Absolutely.
So I think that's just, that is attention for team members to go, I know this matters, but it may not everything that's a part of our vision may be a passion point for the pastor.
That's great.
And that's fair. That's absolutely fair.
That is fair.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about another scenario. How would you want to see your team carry themselves when the load is heavy? So I'm imagining you're in one of those seasons right now. You're raising a lot of money. You're building a new building, but heavy seasons can look like a lot of things. It can look like busier times with events stacked up. It can different seasons of stretch, and no doubt the team around you, a second chair team, is going to feel it and to carry themselves, could even get tired in that moment. What are you looking for from your team in the moments that are the heaviest and where the load is weighing on them?
Mm-hmm. I think it is very important for the team to understand this. And of course it's important for a first chair to communicate this, but everything in ministry is seasonal. And so there are going to be heavy seasons, right? I would say Easter to Mother's Day is just like, here we go. Yep. Right. And I would actually say January to Mother's Day. Sorry. Like that's our growth, right? We kind of hit a little bit of a dip in March, and this year we didn't because of Easter, but we know that. And I think it's important to communicate that to the team and then the team to understand that. And then we talk about that. We try to help them with vacations and how to plan their rest around the craziness. I think teams, you need to be, as a team member, very responsible and honest with your leader about the weight that you're carrying, getting out and being responsible enough to get out in front of your own schedule and realize, okay, here's the grind of this season of our church. We're going to do this many major things. And I try to limit that, by the way. We probably do 8 major things a year, right? Not even one a month. And we could probably walk through what those are. I mean, that's maybe for a different podcast, but we do try to time those very carefully. But I would just say that, number one, you can lead tired, but you can't lead empty. And you can't lead tired forever.
Right.
So, but you can grind if you need to, if it's that kind of season. And so I would say communicating that with your leader, being responsible enough to plan out your vacations, plan out rest, plan out your times is going to be very important. And again, it's like, it isn't the first chair's responsibility to go, hey, have you taken a vacation? And actually we have, because our team grinds. We're 6 years old, but in so many ways, I feel like we're a youth group. You know what I mean? It's just like, and so we actually had to talk to our whole exec team this year, just about like, I want to see vacations on the calendar, like right now, like plan them out, because one of our one of our couples who carry so much, they got to December with like all these days off. And it was like, how did that happen? Because it was just grinding. We're just building church. And so we have tried to be more careful about that. But I would say, even in my own life, I think I'm still working on that. We've been a lot better this year. We went into 2024 with planned vacations. I've never done that in my life.
Really?
I've always pushed until I couldn't think straight and then went, oh, I think we need a vacation or I'm going to quit the ministry. Right. So we've done a really good job of like, we had a break in February. We had a break in April. We had a break in May. And when I say break, it could even just be 2 days, but like we've had some, like we're taking a break in July. I've got like moments, and I think it's very important, but I think for the teams, it's very important that you
very good
take advantage of those and get rest. Yeah.
Maybe one more thing I'd want to explore with you really fast is the subject of alignment. And I've always taught alignment as a heart posture. I certainly believe it is, and I'm open to any thoughts you have on an aligned posture of our hearts. I think alignment is also an organizational issue. Alignment is also, are we all working toward the same things? Are our ministries strategically aligned so that we don't have youth ministry headed one way, kids ministry unintentionally headed a different way, that they're just not accomplishing the same things or even working against each other, or certainly not effectively with each other. So alignment is also this organizational issue to me. And I wonder what you see second chair leaders doing that is creating alignment well in a church or alongside of their pastor. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that a few things come to mind. One would be the fact that you do have to have a heart posture. Of course, I do think it starts there, and I think that really matters. I think you just have to even be honest enough about the vision of the church, and have you really embraced that? Because God does call you to a house. God calls you to a man and woman. God calls you to a vision. And you've got to like just settle that in your heart and then go all in on that. And I think that really does matter. I think so many times my frustration with second chair leaders is that they want clear direction from their leader. And I know what they're saying and what they want, but you still have to think. You have to love the Lord your God with all your mind. And I think so many times what I can see in second chair leaders, and again, we've had to work on this. I mean, this is one of our cultural things that we've had to fight for in our organization, is like, I can teach you how to think, but I can't teach you to think. You either think or you don't. And if you're not a thinker, you will not last at Citylight. You just won't. If you're waiting for instructions, you won't last.
Well,
if you're waiting for everything to be perfectly communicated, you won't last here, because you're gonna have to take a broader vision and think it through and then build it. And I just want to pull up this verse because it's actually in my phone, because I was just talking about it. In Nehemiah 4:6, Nehemiah 4:6 says, the people had a mind to build. They had a mind to build. Another translation, it was their will to build. Another one says they had a willingness to work. These are just different translations, but I love the old King James when it says they had a mind to build.
Brilliant.
And I was just teaching our team on this. Like, you have to have a mind to come into alignment and make it happen. Well, I didn't get enough clarity. Well, they're not talking to me. Well, I just think sometimes that can be an excuse for not thinking and not bringing ideas and not bringing, I know the vision and I'm not trying to change the vision. Here are ideas to help that. And again, can everyone do that? No, but I mean, I think anyone who's smart enough to be listening to this podcast can. You know what I mean? Some people aren't smart enough to care. But I think if you're watching right now, you care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and you're smart enough to connect to smart people like Brandon. So my encouragement to you would be like, if you are working for a visionary, so many times they don't have how you're going to get from A to Z. Sometimes they don't even know how we're going to get from A to B. But they see something and they hear something in their spirit, and they have this God picture. And I believe it is for the people to have a mind to build. I'll just give you one more verse. I'm not trying to preach, but in Exodus 25:8, and I've literally just taught this to my team. So in Exodus 25:8, we didn't know where this was going. God says, have the people build me a sanctuary, a place I can dwell with my people. Have them. So God did not command Moses to build it. He commanded them to build it, the people to build it. God gave Moses the blueprint, right? He went on the mountain and saw it, but the people had to build it.
Beautiful.
And so the team has to come in with ideas and thoughts and passion. And you can't get hurt when the pastor goes, nah, I don't think that's it. Now, see, I think that's easier. At what I'm saying right now could be very hard for you to hear. I'm a songwriter. So you get in a good songwriting session. You never go into a songwriting session and go, God gave me a lyric. You never say that. You never go in with the God card. Oh, God gave me this melody. No. Because then everyone in the writing room goes, well,
can't question it.
Crap, darn it. Like, all right, well, okay, yeah, okay. It's a terrible song, but I guess it's God.
But God gave it to you.
Yeah. You have to go into a songwriting session and go, I had this idea.
Yeah.
I'm humming this melody. I have a thought. And you can't be so married to it. If you've ever been in team sports, you understand you might not be the right player for this portion of the game. You might not be the right guy at this moment. And so a lot of church teams don't understand this because they may not have been in those creative processes or those sporting processes. You have to be able to go, Pastor, I hear your vision. Here's some ideas. And your pastor might go, nah. And that might be because he's right, or it might be because he can't see it yet. It's okay. You got to be patient, right?
Well,
you have to deal with the disappointment or frustration of the no and go, all right, maybe he's not ready. Maybe my idea is terrible. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Maybe I can't see what he sees yet, or maybe he can't see what I see yet. And so, but it is a moment for me to learn, and it is a moment for me to submit, and it is a moment for me to honor. And it is a moment where God's increasing my endurance and my patience. And so it's okay. I don't have to leave the church. I don't have to find a new job. I can just go, all right, well, here's some more ideas. I'm going to keep pumping out ideas because I refuse to just sit at a cubicle waiting for pastor to tell me what to do. Right. And yep. I think that's and again, I think I understand that a little bit of what I'm saying can sound unfair but I am a self-starter.
Yeah.
I did come from nothing. I had to learn. I had to become smart. I had to learn how to think. I had to choose to be a thinker. I had to choose to be a builder. I had to have a mind to build.
Yeah.
And I think God honored that. I think he's still honoring that. And I just think for teams, I know I'm going long, but I just think for teams,
It's good.
it can be so easy to just go, well, pastor's not, he gave me 5 talents, but he didn't tell me what to do with them. No,
Yep.
something in the 5 talent and 2 talent guy went, yep. I'm going to go work this thing.
Yep.
And
I mean, having a mind to build, that is something AI is never going to replace. It is something the internet is never going to replace. You're making such a brilliant point. Leaders that have a mind to build are going to be invaluable to their pastor. Well said today, sir. You are brilliant. You are such a great thinker. I have a bonus question for you.
No. I got time.
We'll see if this gets on.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go Joe Rogan 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I got a bonus question for you.
Yeah.
I've been collecting these from leaders, so I'm not sure what to do with it, but I want to ask you this. How would you like leaders on your team to handle themselves if they sense a season of transition coming? Transition is an interesting topic to me. I've been in one church my whole life.
Yep.
More or less. So I believe in the idea of serving as if, man, I'm going to be here the rest of my life. And I think that is a beautiful, wonderful thing. I also realize transition happens and it's necessary at times. And it comes for all sorts of reasons. And I do know the enemy loves to play around in transition. It can be a messy season. So I figure one of the ways that we handle it the best is if we can set our minds in advance on, if transition were to ever happen, this is how I would carry myself in that moment. I guess I would just love to hear your wisdom on how would you want to see a leader handle themselves if they sense transition coming?
Yeah, I've been on 2 church staffs. Both times when I sensed transition, I did the same thing, which is I prayed for it to go away. I fasted for it to go away. I repented of anything in my heart that could be caught. Like, God, if there's anything in me that is separating myself or rebelling against where you have me, show it to me.
Brilliant.
Expose it. Forgive me. Like, and when I say this, I'm talking about months of prayer. After months of prayer, I would say your next, if you cannot pray that away, I would start to process with a spiritually mature equal, who, and we're going to get to your pastor quickly, but like someone that is spiritually mature enough and equal, not in your church, someone outside of your church. And if you go, I don't have that, well, then you don't have that. And then you got to skip this step. But my point would be calling a friend and going, here's what I'm feeling. Please be honest with me right now. Am I missing it? Do I have a blind spot? Please tell me. I won't cut you off. I won't get mad at you. Please tell me. I think after that, I think you begin to ask for a word from the Lord. You don't bring that to your pastor. You don't bring God said, because I think, again, it's kind of like, well, okay.
Go back there again.
I think what you do is you go to your pastor. And by the way, with all that prayer and conversation, there is a very good chance that you're going to pray yourself back into peace and into that season. Because I don't think, you shouldn't just be going from church to church to church.
Exactly.
As much as yes, you are a rare example of one church for life. This idea of guys being at 6 different churches in the last 5 years, I'm like, come on, man. Like, you got an issue, right? You've been married 5 times in the last 8 years, sis. You got, brother, you got a problem, right? So there is I would be very slow. Dr. Hagen, Brother Hagen, used to say, I would rather be in the will of God late than out of the will of God early. So like, I would rather God have to push me than lead me, like God,
Oh
I'm
my
here.
gosh.
Like, so I'm patient. I'm waiting. I'll tell you, when I went to Pastor Jensen, I said, can I have a meeting with you about my future? Now we had always been open and honest, but I said, I'm feeling a call. I'm feeling this God nudge for Las Vegas. I'm submitting my feeling to you.
Very good.
And I'm submitting, I'm just submitting this emotion and this feeling and this nudge to you. And he said, well, do you believe it's the Lord? So then he asked me, right? And I said, I think, and I did. I said, I think I'm feeling it, but I think, and his response was, will you stay another year? I said, done. You won't hear from me. Done. That was May 2016. We moved June 2017. We moved 13 months later. Because who cares? What's another year? Like, you're not going to miss God's will on your life for honoring a man of God. Like,
yeah, very well said.
Relax. God will honor that. God will see that. I always say there are no opportunities of a lifetime. Like, there's the clear will of God, but there's all, like, be patient. Don't beat yourself up. And so I was like, done. You won't hear from me again. Let's talk next year. And it literally was like after the fast so that was May. After the fast of January, we got together again in February. And I said, I'm feeling it, especially after this fast. And he said, all right, well, can you wait till the summer? I said, done. And that's what happened. And so I think submitting to, well, what if I talk to my pastor and he fires me? He might.
Yeah.
But trust God with that.
Yeah.
What if I go to my pastor and say, I'm feeling a nudge, and what if he makes that my last day? He might. But you know what? Like, there's all these companies. And again, I'm not criticizing or critical, but you see these companies, these headhunter companies that are hiring firms to help you find a person for, to hire for your church, for your team. Yeah. Well, the vast majority of them are on staff at another church, and that church doesn't know it. So they're working at a church while being a part of a firm trying to find a new church. And I don't know. I mean, am I old school? Am I crazy? Yes. But like, I'm not going to hire that person.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hire the person that's been interviewing behind behind another pastor's back. Like, it's again, it's just not my thing. I got that old school thing about me, but like, get out in front of it and start dialoguing with your pastor early, not too early, like really pray it through, come into agreement with your spouse, and then just refuse timelines. And I can speak as someone who has authority in that. I didn't give Jensen a timeline. I didn't tell him,
it's great.
Jensen, I heard from God and I got to be out. No, I said, I'm feeling something and I'm laying that at your feet. What do you say? And he responded, and I honored that. And I don't regret that at all. Now at 33, when that conversation started at 33 years old, I'm now 40. When that conversation started at 33, I felt behind the 8 ball. I felt like I should have planted a church 5 years earlier. I feel like, you know what I mean? You feel all that.
Yeah.
At 40, I go, man, I should have waited I should have got through COVID in OC. I should have bought a house in Orange County during COVID, man. I should have lived it up. Like I should have been at the beach every day. OC didn't even believe that COVID existed, right? It was like, man, I could have been there. Darn it. So You look back, I look back now and I go, I'm be patient.
Yeah.
But yes, there is the risk of communication, and there is the risk of, will my pastor handle it the way I want him to? I wouldn't even say handle it correctly. I would say handle it the way I want him to handle it. And yes, but there's risk in doing everything that we're ever going to do in life.
Yeah.
So you might as well be, if you're going to take risk anyway, be honorable and integrous, and don't talk to 100. I think one of the painful things for a pastor, and I'll end, I know this is a long answer. When a person comes to me to talk to me and they've already talked to 10 people, they've already made up their mind, they already have a consensus, and then I'm number 10. And basically at that point, they want me to bless what they've already decided to do.
Right.
I'm not a big deal. I don't think I'm awesome, but I am busy, and I don't need to be your 10th voice in this.
Great.
Now, if I could be number 2 or 3, but I don't need to be number 10. So if the opportunity arises, if what seemingly is an open door, if, wow, this seems to be a God thing, and you might have been praying through that, processing that with a very trusted friend, and then you come to me, well, that's awesome. That's what I want, right? I've talked to 9 people, and we're all in agreement. No, what do you say? It's like, well, okay. Well, I'm not going to disagree, because I'm not going to be that guy. So, it's going to take risk, but be honorable, be integrous. And that's what I would say.
Well said. Well said. I want to honor you today. I'm thankful for your communication. I'm thankful for your character and your integrity. I'm thankful for your faithfulness to the word. I'm thankful for your faithfulness to Shannon and to Goldie and to your church. Thank you for the leader that you are. We honor you today, and you just shared a truckload of wisdom. I don't even know what to do with it all. We're nearing Joe Rogan status on this. So, but it's all going to stay in. It's beautiful. Thank you so much today.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. I loved it. Thank you so much.